Give a big welcome to the one and only our ambassador, Mr. Dez Taylor. All right, so my job is just to try and get some questions into Dez, and Dez is going to tell us loads of stories throughout his life. So we're going to start at the beginning, Dez. Let's go way back. How did a lad from the Black Country have developed such an overriding passion for fishing that lasted so many years? How did it all begin for you?
I've got a theory different to a lot of the papers, magazines, Angling Trust, etc. And I don't think if you take kids fishing and they catch 100 pound of fish, one day they'll be an angler for life. I think whether your mother and father are anglers or whatever, I think you've got a gene. It's a silly gene, isn't it? You know, anybody that goes out in the winter, in the rain, and catches fish, throws them back in, never takes them home. You know, I always say to people when they say, you know, what do you do with your fish when you've caught them? I say, well, what's your sport, mate? They go, football. I said, well, you know when you scored a goal, do you eat the ball? Oh. You know, so I think if you got the gene, it's a silly gene. Like Chris Tarrant's a multi-millionaire, and he can't go fishing enough. He'll sit on the bank with it raining or whatever. It's just one of those genes. And only your mother and father, my mother and father, nobody in the family ever fished. But when I was taken, a bloke over the road, Stanpool, it was a pigeon. He's a proper Black Country bloke. He had ferrets, he pigeons, and he went fishing. And he went fishing on the canal. And he took me and his son Keith. And from that minute, I was always playing football, always playing cricket. And that from that minute on, when I went and caught that stone loach on the canal, my life changed. You know, I'm 73 now, and I've fished all the time. I've just got probably more serious as I've got older. You know, I've spent all my life from that fish I caught that day. You know, that was that gene. And if you got the gene, you know, you've got it. And I remember I was the most unsuccessful angler from probably 11 when I started to when I was 15. I never had 100 pound of fish. I never probably had 100 fish weighing 2 pound. But here I am now, you know, because, you know, I really get this, that, you know, if you take a kid to a commercial and he can catch on a whip or a pole 100 pound, that'll make him an angler for life. It don't. You can take 100 kids and they can all catch them fish, and they might be on our side in later years. They might be on our side and say, well, I did that when I was a kid and it's all right fishing. They could, you know, vote, you know, if ever that vote came against angling, you know, they'd be on our side. But they don't make an angler, you know, and it's not success that makes an angler. I know some of the most unsuccessful anglers that really are the happiest anglers. And that's, you know, that really is. And some of the most successful, you know, have been unhappy. You know, that they catch for 5 years. I mean, we're looking at a man down here, Phil, you know, like me, has been doing it many years. The longevity is, you know, not many people can do it because of the intenseness. Whether the real reason to go fishing is the real reason. And what I learned that day and still do now is at the end of the day, people say, you know, you're 73 years of age, why do you still go fishing so much? I tell you why, because I love going fishing. And it really does annoy me when people say to me, yeah, you only go fishing for the money, what you can get out of it. And I probably put more into fishing in a week than some of these blokes put in a lifetime. But yeah, it started on the canal, okay, and I just can't get enough of it.
Right, so after you moved on pretty quickly into, I suppose once you're in a teenager, and then it wasn't long before you set up the Worcestershire Specimen Group, when you got into the bigger fish?
Yeah, I mean, again, Phil was members of a group called the Commentary Specimen Group, and we all formed groups. There wasn't the papers, there wasn't the information, there wasn't the internet. So you got your own information. We used to meet down a pub once every couple of weeks, get absolutely smashed out of our brains, talking absolute rubbish all night long. But, you know, we learned one another about fishing, and that's what we did. And you know, then I became interested in, you know, the politics through the NASG.
Well, I was going to say, yeah, because then you moved on to that, and then that's when you really started to pay your dues, Dez, wasn't it? You've been secretary of the NASG as well as NASA, was it?
Well, one of the things I learned early on is give. And if you give,
You
you get a
back.
lot back.
Yeah.
And some of the people I've noticed over the years that keep it tight, they end up, they might have a couple of venues and they got some great fishing and they think it'll last forever, and they won't tell you where it is and they won't tell you nothing about it. They end up, when that fishery's gone, have a guess what they got? Nout. Now, if you fish a venue, if you fish a venue and you've had a few fish out of it and you've had its best, then start giving, start inviting people to it, start asking mates to it, and then all of a sudden you're opening the game up and being no doubt. If you want to catch fish like me my life, all over the world, you've got to make friends, you've got to have contacts, you've got to have those people, you know, and I speculated to accumulate, I help people and they help me back. And that's what I've done all the time.
No, that's brilliant. That's good advice, Des, because that counts for everything in life. It's all about giving rather than taking.
Look at the River Severn.
Yeah.
You know, I invited the likes of yourself up.
Absolutely.
You know, about the Severn, I reckoned that he was going to, you know, break the record. You know, I started catching, I think probably the best fish I had at that time was about 11 pound, 12 pound. And I said in the paper, come on up. And the Southern lads, Kenny Oddy, yourself.
We did, but then it was down to Howard. Well, he's in the audience there somewhere. Howard Maddox, he broke the record up on the Severn back in those days, and that was really all about what you put in your article.
Yeah, and I wanted people to come up.
Impact.
You know, I could have kept that. Do you keep it to yourself? There's a lot of venue, a lot of swims, and I invited people up. I'm still friends with them now. They still invite me to the likes of the Kennet, the Lee, up north or whatever. All those people that I invited down on the Severn all those years ago and helped them. You know, Paul Woodcock, and loads of people. And they're still helping me now from that speculating to accumulate. So seriously, you know, always when you got a venue, just one venue, it might be a Breen venue, it might be a Roach, it might be Barbel or whatever. Just remember, it ain't going to last forever. It never, ever does. Nothing in life lasts forever. And what you got to do, you got to just milk it a bit for yourself. And then you got to start speculating to accumulate if you want to travel, if you want it to go on. Because once it ends and that venue's gone, you ain't got nout. You know, I remember Oxford. When I went down to Oxford in probably 81, 82, there was a couple of lads there that had some great bream fishing and tench fishing. And they wouldn't tell you anything. They wouldn't tell you anything about anything. And they ended up when those venues went and they either was syndicated or become carp fishers or whatever. Hey, when they found the likes of me, I go, that's what you told me years ago. You know, and that's the answer you get. You know, I mean, I remember that they used to bait. I remember they used to bait the pigs off field down there. And I remember one day pulling up on a fishery that you weren't allowed to fish. But everybody, you won't be even poaching. You just roamed onto, it's called TC Lake. And I rolled up there one day, and there was a chap on there that he's dead now, a German guy, and I won't mention the war. And he came down and he said, have you seen that little piece of paper? I said, right, what's that? He said, I'm baiting up. I said, baiting up? I said, you know, I've travelled 2 hours. I'm going to get in. And there's this huge gravel pit. And he just expected me to move. He was one of those guys that, you know, sort of would never give anything at the time, would never tell you anything, and he expected me to move. You can imagine the answer. And the paper went in the lake and I fished his swim, but we were never friends after that. But so speculate to accumulate, you know, you need friends in fishing.
Back in those days, Des, who were your influences back then? You know, when you, not long after you started out and got into the specimen scene.
The thing is, your influences change. You know, I mean, initially when I was reading books, the first books in the library was Dick Walker, you know, but then there was Jack Hilton and then there was Bill Keel and whatever. But then there was other, you know, when I expanded in my fishing, you know, I've got trout heroes, I've got sea heroes, I've got worldwide heroes, you know, so all those people, you know, if you're a barbel angler and Fred Crouch was your influence, you know, that would be that little part of my life. But, you know, I fished for so many species that in the end, my heroes
That's a
change.
big list.
My heroes change.
And when was it, Des, that you really got into the writing side of things as well? So you're catching these big fish, you've set up the specimen groups, you've been involved, you're the secretary of NASA. When did the writing sort of kick in for you?
Well, I've always been a bit of a comedian.
Yeah.
I've always been a chap that could tell a story. And I remember when I first started, when I used to read at first, because I was very controversial in the initial days. I was very controversial.
No, we don't believe that.
But I was controversial in what I was reading. I thought, this ain't right, And there were some of the things that I wanted to write and put it right. And I still try to do that now. In fact, that's why I formed my own group, on Facebook, because, I don't like what the press is saying all the time. I don't like what people are doing out there. And I thought, I want to start to get a gang of blokes that believe the same as me. And that's what I've done, and ended up with a group of 34,000 people, and rather than, and that's why I started writing, and people liked it. And I remember Dick Walker saying to me, he said, you will end up writing for many, many years, Des. And I said, is that right? He said, yeah, because you write simple. And I do write simple because I don't know big words or whatever. I do write simple. I'm not a clever man, but I leave that to editors, to edit. I just put the meat of it. And he said that whether you're a dustbin man or a surgeon, you can understand Dez Taylor's writing, and that has been the case. And I've ended up writing. I think I started writing at 26, and I'm now 73 and still writing as much as ever. So.
Yeah, well, you just preempted the next question, Des, because when you began writing for the Angling Times, and I mean, you've been writing for a good 25 years at least.
I've been writing 34 years.
That's a long while. And really, you took over from Dick Walker. I mean, some
people put it, that was, the problem is, and I've done it myself, when somebody new comes along, it's like you go, I can remember him when he used to, when he couldn't tie an hook on, or I can, I always say, if you go back far enough, I used to wear napkins, I don't now, probably getting nearer again, but, you think to yourself, I didn't take over from Walker. Walker went and there was a new me. I was nothing like Walker. I wrote nothing like Walker. And Walker was in a different era. There was so much movement in Walker's era to we hadn't got nothing, he's designing rod wrist and landing at handles and buzzers and things. Mm. And now anybody that comes in now, you've got a job inventing anything, and it's all there. Absolutely. And but I never classed I took over. He was finished. He'd been finished before that. He needed somebody new to come. I mean, I thought his writing was crap for the last 10 years.
As you said,
for 25 years he wrote, but there was 15 years that was very, very good. And then there was 10 years pigeonhole stuff, what I call pigeonhole stuff, which is the same. He didn't go fishing that much, and you could tell. And so I didn't take over. He was finished, and I went in the slot.
And then I remember around back that time, I think I might have even been there. You gave a talk, didn't you, at his memorial?
I did.
I think it was in Dunstable, Des, was it?
It was, and I always remember Fred J. Taylor. He introduced me. He said, and now first on the stage is a chap called Dez Taylor. This is Fred J. Taylor, the famous Fred J. Taylor. And he said, I'm going to tell you a fact now. There's never has a Taylor been hung. And he said, this chap coming on now might be the first. And I thought, what a lovely introduction from Fred. That was to Fred. But my father did say to me when I was younger, genuinely, he did say, son, he said, the way you lark about and the way you can make people laugh, he said, you'll end up on a stage. He said, the problem is you're going to end up with a trap door under your feet and a rope around you there. So that was my dad.
And how many books you written, Des? I've got 5 books?
Yeah, I mean, mainly sort of local type books, Fish in the Midlands or whatever. But I've wrote, the one with Barry Rickards.
Right.
And then I wrote Great Days, and then I wrote Great Days Extra. And people say to me, you know, why don't you write more books? And to be honest, I'm too selfish. I'm doing too much fishing. I don't want to, I don't want to be in the house. You know, I think to myself, if God gives me my eyes and my brain, I've got plenty of time. I've still got a few books in me of all species and all things in angling. You know, I'd like to write a chapter in my last book of the complete that's been running, the angling over the last 10 years. And then when I do write that will be the end of me, because nobody will want to sponsor me or whatever, and I'll just say, well, I know anyone. You know, that will be the last chapter in a book. But I'm just too, you know, if you said to me, you know, can you write a book, and it's going to be sort of 6 months out, I go fishing all the time. You know, it's nothing for me to go fishing on a morning and then on an evening and then go for 2 days and then go for a week's fishing and the missus is literally only going to come to when my missus says, darling, can I go golfing for 3 days? And so I think, poof, here we go, I'm going tench fishing. It's just an excuse for me to go fishing because I absolutely am addicted. My life has, I kid you not, my life has been swamped, took over by fishing. That's all I think about. If I'm at the Christmas table with family, I'm thinking where I'm going after Christmas. I'm thinking about what I'm doing. I'm absolutely took over by fishing. And if I tell you what I do in a week or a 2 weeks or 3 weeks, you know, the likes of Steve will say, I don't know how you do it. You know, and the only reason I do it is because I absolutely love it. You know, whatever the weather, when people say to me, you know, I've got to get this ready, I've got to get that, I say, you make an excuse not to go. You know, people go, you know, I've got to get me line ready, I've got to get me, I said, but that's 5 minutes. I've got to get me pain, well, that's another 5 minutes. You know, you're trying to look for an excuse. Me, I'm looking for an excuse to get out there. And people say, how have you wrote for that long? Well, I've wrote for that long because I could write a book every month with what I'm doing, you know, because I love it. And I always say to people, you know, just get out. Never mind about all this, the expert stuff and that. Most of you never going to be an expert. But in fishing, for some reason, I don't know what it is, you know, to enjoy it, you know, you need to catch more. You need to catch bigger. You need to catch them longer. You need to travel. You need to get out in the fresh air and just enjoy it. You ain't going to make no money out of it. You know, the people think they are kidding themselves. Very few people make money out of fishing, real money out of fishing. Mate, the ones that really good is you go Friday and Saturday or Sunday fishing. That's pure enjoyment. Never mind about what Carol Kirkwood says. Just go. The weather, away you go. Just go fishing.
Well, what's interesting, Des, that passion has been rewarded because you were recognised. You were the first winner of the Angling Writer of the Year by the Writers Association. Do you remember that? Yeah, was there a story behind that?
That was in a hotel on the River Wye, and all there were all the, you know, the contemporaries, John Bailey and all the, you know, the posh writers, old chap, and, you know, I went down the river and, you know, I saw something in the trees and it was all green, and I think, Christ, he's on LSD. You know, and I don't see all this, and all the contemporary writers are all there. And then there's me sitting there, a black country bloke, you know, and so I remember, oh God, what's his name, the Shimano bloke, Dave Lewis. Dave says, you've won this. And I said, don't be daft. Don't be daft, I couldn't possibly have won it. And what the advantage I'd got is that first year they gave it to a woman called Christine Bannigan. And she was a non-angling journalist, and she'd got to decide, we've got to present 5 different articles, so there was no politics involved. And suddenly, the announcement, and the winner. And I thought, I've got a chance. The winner is Dez Taylor. And she said, by a country mile, I could feel the enthusiasm, I could feel the love for it in your articles and your passion for it. So I wanted. But the Angling Writers the next year, they thought, well, we can't have Dez Taylor winning that again, a rough-ass black country bloke. So they decided amongst themselves. And have a guess who won? You got it. The bloke who was seeing all the I walked down the river and lilac was falling on my head. And, to me, I find that if you're a genuine guy that writes that stuff like Yatesy or whatever, I can stand it. But there's a lot of angling writers now think, I should write like that. And very few people can write like I can't write like that, so I don't. So why you should try to, I don't know. There's a few well-known anglers that try to write flowery. Yatesy can write like that because he's a nutter, isn't he? He is. I mean, I'd say that to Chris. I remember doing a talk with Chris, and we were at a game fair, and all of a sudden we're sitting there, me, Bob, and the gang of us, and he ain't there. And we're thinking, and we kept waiting and waiting and waiting. And in comes Yatesy with a lollipop, a curly-whirly, and he's gone, I'm sorry about that. The queue was so long for the curly-whirly, but I thought, he says, when you started tasting it, I just got to carry on. I thought, hang on a minute, everybody's waiting for him to talk. There's only Yatesy that would do that, and that's the type of bloke, and that's why he writes like he does. But you can't make that up, can you? And you can see that in people's writings. I've got to be an all-rounder, or I've got to be a flowery writer or whatever. And you can tell when people have looked. See, I think people like genuine stuff. If I walk down the river and I see a plant and I say, I looked at it and I thought, I wonder what that is. When I got home, I looked at it and it was actually a Ponegorus whatever it was. And I'll say, so in other words, I didn't know what it was, but I looked. So it was genuine. There's nothing worse than you get a clever dick, gets back home, and then he goes, of course, I was walking along and saw a Patagonia such and such from Mauritius that fell out the sky in a spaceship about 5 years ago. And you think, this is just absolute bollocks, he's just writing stuff that he's read, so I think that's why I've been a success.
Right, okay. So it was no surprise really when the Angling Trade Association made you the Angling Personality of the Year.
Well,
do you remember that one?
That was quite an easy one, because quite a lot of famous anglers are boring to have anyway. So that was quite an easy one to win, really.
You're making it easy for me, Des.
That was quite an easy one to win. Personality of the Year in fishing.
Yeah.
That's a big one, isn't it?
Brilliant stuff. Now, always a winner, Des. Right, so you're undoubtedly one of the most famous, well-known big fish anglers. You've got some stories about some of the big fish that you caught, Des? Some funny ones as well. I'll give you free rein.
Well, I've got to be careful. I can't tell the grey white ones because I got in trouble telling stories about grey white ones in the Barbel Society do.
No problem. We're coming on the Barbel again in a minute. But
I mean, over the years, when you go on trips, you characters, anglers are characters, aren't they? Where people that want to spend time in the middle of nowhere, so, I've met some great characters over the years. And I say to my missus, I always seem to have nutters as mates. And she says, why, Des? You're the biggest nutter of the lot. And so, I mean, 1,001 stories, and hopefully they'll come out as we go along.
Okay, well, you touched on the lower seven, didn't you, earlier on, about that article that you wrote that was such a big influence on everybody. But we spoke about it the other day. I mean, it's a river that we both love. It runs through our veins. And I know we're up on the Trent, but we'll talk about that in a minute. Do you reckon the Seven's ever going to do a real big fish, like a 20-pounder that's going to come out of there?
I don't know. I think things are changing now. Even the Warwickshire Avon's doing up towards 20. He was struggling to get to 14 or 15 for ages. And right, so I've had that problem myself, so you're all right. With the bait going in, with less barbel there now, there's a chance. There's a chance. But going back to, the seven, I do love the seven, but I love it from around about Bewdley up. It's my favourite river, for every species. But I was never a lover of the bottom end of the Severn. I was never a lover, and I've never been a lover of the tidal Trent. I go there and I've done it, and because the fish are there, and I wanted to catch some of them. But I can't get a true love for the bottom end of the Severn. It's big, it's wide, And I think, you know, for me, the best barbel fishing that I've ever had was on the river team. You know, putting a bait under a tree, you know, one rod. You know, that was to me the whole essence of barbel fishing. You know, when I get on the Trent, I always feel I'm at Dungeness cod fishing. You know, and that's not taking the mickey out of it. I mean, do it. That's one of the big changes that's come in barbel fishing. Yeah. The way we fish, the baits we use, and whatever. You know,
I was going to come on to that, but literally because of the Trent and, you know, the fish that it produces and the methods of sales. I mean, what do you see the changes that there's been in the last 30 years?
The changes the way we fish.
So many.
I mean, years ago, you would never seen a barbel angler camping in a bivvy on a little river. He'd have felt stupid, wouldn't he? You know, in a bivvy on the river team. But you know, that's what people do now. It's almost gone into a carp fishing. I don't blame them. It's great, isn't it? You know, where they got the telly or the cooker. You know, that's great. And if you were on a venue where, you know, you need to be there many hours, then you've got to do the specimen thing. And I've done it myself on the Trent, whatever. And that's been a big change. You never saw many anglers do that. You might have had them camping down, you know, instead of getting a hotel or digs. But the amount of people that spend days and weeks on a barbel venue now, that was never done. So that's been the biggest change. And the other change is, of course, the baits. You know, I remember when we had theories of barbel never took boilies because they were too hard. Things like that. They only take paste or only take luncheon meat, and how you change. And then all of a sudden I would say 99% of my fishing now is on a boilie. You know, I laugh when rolling the meat. I said, well, roll a bloody boilie. It lasts longer. It smells better. You know, whatever. So, and the other thing is this fishing with 2 rods up on buzzers, which is great, and I use it a lot. But you know, if you're fishing with fish under the tip, the worst thing you could do is stick 2 rods in the swim, stuck them up with a line heading into it. It really is. And I've gone down to the team and noticed kids fishing like they're on the Trent, and those are the big changes. They're not barbel anglers. They've come in and bought 2 rods, and they don't know where they fish. They're going to stick them 2 rods up and have the line going into the water, which that's not learned watercraft and whatever.
No, absolutely. They're not really thinking about it. It's following fashion, Des, isn't it? Really, that's what it's seen now. Because I've seen exactly the same as you, and it does frustrate me because I just like the rods low down. You get neck ache from all that. I don't know how people can do it.
You need to do it on a you know, a lot of waters, and you know, if you're going to be fishing for many hours, there's nothing wrong with using a buzzer. And if you're going to be stuck in a bivvy for a week, there's nothing wrong with having a telly on or whatever. You know, that's up to you. I mean, I last time I went to Dunham Bridge. I went opposite Dunham Bridge. There was two bivvies, and we went through, me and my mate Ray, and there was 2 bivvies. There was an aerial about 20 foot up, but then he's obviously got internet from Mars, and he got like a crate of Stella, you know, and I could hear the telly or the radio, and I'm thinking, you know, how can I knock it? Because at the end of the day, you know, nothing stays the same.
No.
And that's the way it's gone. And you know, we can't not everybody can fish with a centre pin, you know, with the rod down low or whatever. It's moved on. It'll never come back. Yeah. It'll never come back. And do you want it? You know, it's modern day. Because the nice thing about fishing is never knock what people are doing. You just carry on what we're doing. If you want to fish a centre pin on a cane rod with a piece of meat on a quill float, do it. The only time you're in trouble is when you can do, I don't like these people who fish the buzzers and air rigs I like the set. No. You do what you want because you can. And that's the lovely thing about fishing. You can stop in your little cocoon. A chap I was talking today, he got a couple of Bruce Ashby rods he's had for 30 years. He said they're the best rods I've ever used. They're the best rods, barbel rods out. And he used great. You know, that's it. Brilliant. And if there's no doubt there's people on here that'll use cane rods and centre pins or whatever, fantastic. That's the lovely thing about fishing. You can just keep in your little cocoon.
Okay, Des, can you put your mind to what has been one of your most memorable barbel captures, Des? Over
The most memorable catch I've ever had was the first double figured I ever had. You know, I went down on the bottom end of the Severn. I'd followed match anglers in there, and when I went down there, I couldn't even weigh up which way the river was running. You know, it was blowing up that way, and I remember standing in Beecham's Court when it flows that way, and I stood, and I went, the river's flowing that way, and the bloke went, no, it's flowing that way. And I thought, oh, Christ. So that was how much I knew about the river. And it was so wide. You know, I was used to the middle Severn and the team. So when we went down, we struggled at first. Then this was 1988, was it?
Probably would be right.
1988.
Yeah.
And things like, you could laugh now. I mean, we were innovative to say, well, we'll throw a load of hemp in, we'll throw 4 or 5 pints in, and we'll clear off for 2 or 3 hours, and then we'll come back. That was like, wow. I mean, now you think, hey, who thought of that, you know? But we were struggling, and we were struggling to catch fish down there. We were struggling to find them. We were sort of finding the depth. We were trying to find the drop-offs. We were trying to find the second drop-off. We were trying to find when drop-offs led into one. And it was great times because me and my mate, we had an open page that we were just learning. And my mate, we were fishing and we were doing what barbel fishermen do, you know, sort of arrive at 2 hours before and then fish into the dark 2 or 3 hours and then clear off. That's what most barbel anglers do, and that's what I don't do now. That's what most do, and that's what I don't do now. Perhaps we'll go on to that later. But what I would say is my mate, Phil, he fell asleep. He was on his own, and he fell asleep. And he phoned me. I mean, he's like, Phil Goodsell. Anybody that knows Phil is like, how you doing, man? All right, man. You know, he's just one of them nice people. And he said, I fell asleep, proper black country, baby. I fell asleep last night. You know, at 2 o'clock, the rod nearly went in. I went, the rod nearly went in? He said, yeah. I've got the photo of it, £12. Oh my God, £12. I mean, you know, what's that now? But it was a £12 off the bottom end of the Severn. And I went down there and tried to catch it, and I still struggled. I caught 8s, I caught 9s. And then one night, I remember the tip, the shad were on the one night, and the shad run up the river, and you're getting vibrations on the rod as the shad, thousands run up and they're running past the line. Little vibration, and we're thinking, oh my God. But we'd moved then from what we thought were liners. We were using baits like luncheon meat with that rod, with the hook in the bait. I mean, this is silly stuff now, but we're going back to before somebody put a brain in my head. And, you know, we were there. And I thought, why don't I start using carp tactics? Why don't I use an air rig? And suddenly, these liners turned into bites. They weren't liners at all. They were fish fiddling about, but when they fiddled about with the hair rig, it was in the gob and away it went. And I had a bite. It came in, and I landed it, and it was just over £10. It was £10.6, and that was, to me, that was it. You know, the end of the story, the end of the quest had done. And I've always been the same for whatever species. I've never been one to keep carrying on. People say to me, you know, why don't you go back down the lower Severn? You know, they're going down there 14, 15. I did the lower Severn. I caught the lower Severn fish. I don't need to go back and catch 15, 16 pound fish. I did it. You know, I moved on. And that's the way I am. I always fish a contest with myself. I never ever go to a place enough that I say, I will catch one even if it takes me 10 years. I ain't bothered. I will catch it. I don't do that. And I've got the greatest respect for anybody that does it. But I don't do that. I give myself a set time, and I either fail or I win. It's a bit like if you're boxing. I compare it to, can you beat Mike Tyson? No. Could you beat him when he's asleep? and a lump hammer? Yes, I could. And that is comparing to time. You know, time. You know, and I've never been a time man. I've always given myself a time to do it. And when the time I think, I'm going to give this a season, and then I think, you know, I'll give it next season. And if I fail, I failed. And I just walk away. And I go and do something else. And that's, you know, that's what I've always done.
That's brilliant, Des. Excellent. Des, I want to change the subject a little bit now. You're instantly recognisable to everyone in the fishing
So
world.
good looking.
You know,
So good looking.
you've cultivated this image.
She just looked and said, well, I didn't know who he was. They just looked at her husband and said, I don't think so. I didn't know who he was. I saw you.
No, but
You'll remember me now.
Have you ever been called out there? Have you ever been recognised in places where, I won't say cause you embarrassment, but inappropriate places?
There was a brothel in... no.
Go on. Behave yourself, Des. Go on.
No, the reverse has happened. That, you know, I mean, I'm a realist, you know. I'm a well-known angler, which is like being a well-known bloody chiropodist, in it, you know. But, you know, I don't go into Tesco's and people start, you know, women start going, oh my God, you know, but I remember sometimes you don't realise that you or where you're at. And I remember being in a pub with a wife about, I don't know, 10 years ago, and there was a gang of lads in the pub, and I'm sitting there, I've had a few drinks, and they start to look across, and they start to laugh and giggle. And they go, and then giggling. And I thought, they're starting to take the pee, they are. They're starting to move towards a crack up the chops in a minute. And I sort of remember looking across, and they go in. And I thought, I'll go and have a word with them. So I went over, and I went, all right, lads, have we got a problem? And he went, you're right, it is Dez Taylor. So what they've been doing, they've been going, one of them's gone, they explained, one's gone, you know who that is over there? Who? Dez Taylor. Of course it ain't Dez Taylor. It is, I'm telling you, they were laughing about it. And there's me, you know, sort of paranoid Des, thinking they're taking the piss. And they weren't, they were going, it's Dez Taylor. And so I've gone over to give them a smack up the chops, and they've gone, it's Dez Taylor. So that was one of them.
Oh, brilliant, Des. Excellent. Okay, another question here for you, Des. I know since you started your guiding, I mean, it's been a few years now, and you've met loads of people. Has it sort of affected your own sort of fishing or your own outlook on fishing?
It's affected my fishing and made me a much better angler.
Interesting, eh?
Yeah, it's made me a much better angler. One, you know, I can't take money off people and start saying, oh, I tell you what, it's rained today, so we won't catch. Or, tell you what, it's cold today, so we won't catch in the boat. It's costing me £300 for this prep to tell me I ain't going to catch. No, I'm going to catch you somewhere. And I've had to learn that no matter what the conditions, no matter what it is, I'm going to catch you some fish. And when you learn that, you have to learn different things. And that's what I have. See, if I go fishing on my own, it don't matter. It don't matter. I'm going to try and catch, but it ain't the pressure on. The pressure is on when you took money off people to catch. And if they don't catch with me, I give them another day. Right? Because that's what I do, right? But let me tell you something now. The skills I've learned on the feeding, and I fish in the day. I can't take people in the middle of the night. I start fishing about 7 o'clock and I finish at 2 o'clock. And I tell you something now. Most of my catches come between 10 and 2 o'clock. In the day. It's the way I feel. Some people go, it's because where you are. No. If there's plenty of fish, and they don't have to be barbel, the way I feed and the way I fish, I make them barbel have it. Barbel are the same as anything else. Barbel will not sit there and allow every other fish to feed. And most barbel anglers just don't feed enough. They go, Des, we ain't got the amount of barbelers in your... I said, you don't need the amount of barbel. You just need the amount of fish. Because once you get competition, the barbel feed. That's what they do. And if you can stop fishing, and this is the hardest problem, when the bloke's paying money and we sit there for an hour with me feeding and saying, and he's looking, especially when he's with a mate, he's gone, how much have we paid for this? And we ain't even fishing. And if I got a woman that goes, I don't even know him. So, you know, I've got to then turn this into catching fish. And I've learned through guiding, I've learned so much more about fish. And I've had some, you know, some of the most delightful days of my life ever is, and I related to one. There was a chap called Bill from Norfolk, and he was a proper southerner. Know what I mean, son? All that, as it happens, know what I mean? Want to buy a watch? I said, I don't want to buy a watch, Bill. And he was with his son. And he came fishing. He'd been on the Y. He'd been on the Y with Bob James and the river.
Okay.
Bob's an excellent angler, excellent guide. The river was up. It'd come up overnight, really 14 foot as the Y can, totally ruined. And he said, me dad, it's come out with you, you know, hope he can catch. He just wants to catch a barbel. He said, you know, he's in the workman's club. He left London, and he then went to, I think he went to Coventry. And this was in the war from London. They, bombing London.
Yeah.
Bombed. His name was Lucky Bill, obviously. They started bombing Coventry, and they moved him again. And then he ended up over in Peterborough. Anyway, he was in this club, and he said, I just want to catch. The first two bites, I dropped a bit of a boo. We put him on a bit of a snag area. Over he's gone, and he's lost the first two. And he was really despondent. And I said, Bill, let me tell you something. If I got to stop here till Friday, this was like Monday or whatever, I said, you'll be going home with a barbel. Let me tell you. And he said, oh, all right. He said, I hope I do. And he was really, this bloke was 80 odd years of age. Anyway, over he's gone. He's landed one. I can't remember the weight. It was a good fish, about 8 pounds or something. And he's caught it, he photographed it. His son's his son's about like 40 or 50 or whatever. And he's gone, oh, Des, this is made it. And I always remember he got a trilby hat on, and he put the fish back. I took the photo. I said, there you go, Bill. And he went, he said, you know, as it happens, Des, that's the best fish I've ever had. Like, he give it all. Then all of a sudden, he's sitting there. I always remember that. I remember this all my life. He's right in the thing of his hat. He's got this little pewter barbel. And he said, the lads have given me this and said, you can only put that on your hat when you've caught a barbel. And I said, well, there you go, Bill. They'll now call you Barbel Bill. And I tell you what, I watched him and I see him fiddling, and he put it on with a thing at the back of it, and he went, Barbel Bill. And I'll always remember that. You know, Barbel Bill, and I thought, I've done that. And that to me was worth loads of fish, you know, to get Barbel, because he was going to go in the club. Fucking am I the man? Know what I mean, son? Hey? Even the women recognise me. You know, we'd be, you know, and that was, you know, that's why didn't bought me that.
Oh dear.
But I've had the other things. I mean, I love the carp anglers that come out with me, and I got some great carp lads, and some of the young carp lads, all this absolute about they took up carp and they had an apprenticeship. Some of these young carpers, man, they're going to be they can catch 30 and 40 pound carp, but they couldn't catch a gudgeon on the canal. Of course they can. There's some of the really top anglers, but some of the guys that have come out with me, oh, you've never seen anything like it. Like they've got to cast from here to the window, and they go. I'm going to have another birthday before you cast here. And they go, do you want me to cast? No, I'm all right. So there's no trees at the back. And he goes, no, 2 yards. And I go, oh, I said, put some bend in the rod. So now there's a problem. I'm going, sure you don't want me to cast? No, Des. No, I want to catch my own fish. I'm thinking, this is going to be an expensive day, this is. And he's gone, again, because they've got to go through the procedure, haven't they? Because he's read the ad in penning, casting, and all of a sudden he's gone, wow, like that, whoosh, and I've gone, you've just killed a deer. Just killed a deer. It's gone, it ain't gone close, it's gone 30 feet into the tree-lined area. You know, and you think, oh my God. You know, so some of the time, some of the material you've got to work with is, and another thing is, and always remember this, is the other great thing is when people say, I'll say, blah, blah, and they go, I've been fit, because what normally happens is two blokes come, and one bloke's booked it up, and the other blokes come, well, I've come along with him, I've been fishing 50 years, you know, I don't need to know anything, you know, I don't know everything. You think, oh, right, I know a swim for you, with the overhanging tree, and you got to cast it underneath, and he goes, you go, there you go, mate. You see that little spot there? That's where you got to get. And you think, and I tell you what, unbelievable. But, so, it doesn't matter how long you've fished. It's like golfers. You can be a golfer all your life and still be hopeless. And it's the same with fishing. It don't matter. But if you keep saying, I learned when I was a kid, I've been fishing for 50 years, eh? No, you've been fishing for 50 years and you started learning, and after about 5 years, you learned nothing else after that. You've never been willing to accept anything else. So always be willing. I'm 73. I've just took up salmon fishing. I'm an absolute wally. And I'm learning, and it's something new. And that's, to me, just keep your mind open. You'll always be a better angler. You know, I sort of, you know, it's like people, when they say like a Mitchell 300 reel, that's great to use, and that's fine. But when people say, you know, the Mitchell 300 is the finest reel ever made, that's like saying an A35 van is the best car that was ever made. You know, it just ain't. You know, so keep yourself open to gear, keep yourself open to bait, keep yourself open to the world out there, you know, and you'll be a better angler, rather than keep saying, I've fished for 50 years. So, yeah, I have blokes say, I never come on a guide, David Dez Taylor. I know more than him. And I tell you something now, when you see him cast and talk about fishing, he's hopeless. But he just needs to accept it, and then he'll learn. He ain't a thicko, he just ain't willing to learn.
Yes, no, I can relate to a lot of that, because, as you say, I've been doing the guiding, and you meet so many different people. I'm going to regret asking you this next question, but I'm going to ask you anyway. What would you do if Carol Kirkwood made an inquiry she wanted a day's guiding with you, Des? Come on, I'll feed you that one. What would be your reaction?
Carol Kirkwood is a bit of an enigma to me, really, because I'm a member of a fan club. I love the way she talks. I just imagine Carol coming out of the show and going, aye, Des. And I just, oh my God, thank you, Carol. It's all over. But with Carol, although I love her and the fan club thing, she ruins the weather for me, because I have to watch it, because I live in the West and her boobs are so big. She covers all the area of my thing, so I'm thinking, either get some tighter fitted bras or move to the left. I can't. So, but no, I just love her. I think she's a bonny woman. She's always laughing. She's willing a joke. You can see her on YouTube with they're spitting water on one another with the young lads, and she's a real laughing. You know what I would do? I'd have a good laugh. She likes to laugh. I'd have a laugh, and she'd catch a few barbel.
Brilliant. Now listen, Des, definitely you're about one of the most with it anglers around at the moment. By that I mean
Get it down, bro.
No, the way you've got yourself involved with social media, And the way you've developed your Facebook page, you've got your tackle down, 34,000 plus people testify to that. I mean, that's incredible, Des. You've already told them how old you are. To relate to people and lots of the younger people the way you do, it's quite something. It's quite awesome in actual fact. Tell us a little bit about that, the tackle down, how that's come about, and again, the effect that's had on you, because it must be quite massive.
Yeah, I've just never accept getting old. I don't want to be old. I want to mix with younger people. And when I say younger people, I don't mean necessarily the young. I want to, people that, I don't want to, sort of, I'm having a job. Well, I don't want to talk to you. All I want to do is get up. I want to get out. I want to do different things, and I want to mix with that. And all of a sudden, blokes my age, Facebook, I ain't on Facebook, all that Twitter, all that TikTok, or any of that. And when I saw it, when I moved 7 years ago, I downsized the house from a 4-bedroom down to a 2-bedroom bungalow, and my son-in-law said, instead of having paying another 40, 50 grand for another bedroom, why don't you just get a big, shed thing? You'd have all your, your memorabilia and stuff, not your tattle, your memorabilia and stuff in there. I thought I'd do that. And he said, why don't you do a blog? Blog, who wants to listen to me? There's a blog. And I started on a Friday night. And a few people have tried to emulate it. They last about 3 weeks, don't they? This is going to be the best of this and the best of that. And they last about 3 weeks. And I've been on now 7 years. And what I've done is just embraced young people. It's the way they want to speak to you. It's the way they're going to learn. And you've got to move. It's like tattle shops. If you sit in a tattle shop like the old days and wait for fishermen to come in to buy the gear, you're dead. You've got to go out to them. You've got to get to them on Facebook. And that's what I've done. And I remember when I started for Angling Times 30 odd years ago, anybody that knew me would go, I read your column in Angling Times, or I love your column in Angling Times, or I think I've had a few of them as well. But it was always Angling Times. Now I rarely ever get that. What I get is people, like numerous people around here have said, love your Friday show on a Friday night, absolutely love it. Or, I watch you, or I'm a member of your group, Des, or whatever. So, it's just moved on. It's getting to the same people, but, you've got to use the vehicles there. I want to say my things, and I want to get what I'm, because I think angling, and I don't want to, just say that I think angling's been led down a very, very bad road, and I'm always trying to bring it back to what I believe is the right road. But a lot of people might believe I think it's the wrong road. I don't. Because there's a common thing now. If you disagree, you're wrong. There's no argument. I disagree. So you're bound to be wrong. And so I'm wrong a lot of the time.
I know. It has been good. I mean, the last few you had, when you had Lowell on there and you had James, I mean, that was something that was quite special. That was
I think I've got a skill to know what people want.
Yes.
Like when I do talks, if you're going down a washroom, you can look round and you can see people that are all going, you've got to change your line, ain't you? You've got to change course. You're thinking, hang on a minute. You've got to change course here, or this is going to be a disaster. So I've always been able to understand people. And with Lol, he's one way of fishing. I don't fish anything like Lol. No. I fish exactly opposite to Lol, but I appreciate the way he fishes, and I love the bloke to bits, so I have him on the show. The week after, James, and I ask him what you would ask him, and the things like feeding, how to feed a swim properly, and that, which I know James is an absolute expert on. That's what so at the hour and a half show, I was asking him about feeding, and that, not being big-headed or whatever, the best interviewers are the ones that know the answer. And you ask the question because you know the answer. So you know the questions to ask. And so, they're successful, and that's why people learn.
That's brilliant, Des. And as I say, I think you're a real innovator because, to get something off the ground like that and get that developed the way it has now, it's quite phenomenal. You've led the way. Anyone else, you've just laid down the marker. No one's come close.
Well, at the end of the day, my enthusiasm is what gets me through. That's all that gets me through. And anybody, I don't compete with anybody on that. I do my own thing. I'm unique. The same as Matt Hayes, the same as Bowler, the same as anybody. There's only one Dez Taylor, so I ain't compete with anybody. So whatever I do, they can't come out and go, I'm Dez Taylor. They can't, can they? You might think Dez Taylor's a complete or you might think he's the bee's knees. That's up to you. But 34,000 must think I'm all right.
They can't be wrong.
And they can't all be wrong, can they? When you consider the anglers, the angling trust think I'm a complete and got 13,000 members, and I got 34,000 members, and I'm the There you go. Next on.
Brilliant. Right, Des. We're getting near the end now, but I want you to tell the audience a bit about your missus. I mean, she's got to be your rock. I mean, to live the life that you've done and go fishing, you've got to have something behind you, a rock. And Maggie is your rock. Say a few words.
The thing that makes me really laugh is some people have this impression that Dez Taylor's a proper man's man. He goes drinking and he does this, he does that. I've been married for 53 years. God, that's a long way. To one woman, and at the end of the day, I've got a relationship with my wife that she plays golf. We come together a lot, but you got to remember when I'm out. I mean, I will go on a guide day, and people say, I come back from a guide day at 4:00, and then I go fishing on the night, on the Warwickshire Avon. People say, Jesus Christ, your missus has stood for that. I say, hang on, I've been working. I've worked through the day. I've brought money into the house, and I've been working hard work, trying to entertain people. I entertain them. Anybody that's had a guide day with me will tell you, if, sometimes they'll have 20 fish, sometimes they'll have 10 fish, sometimes they'll have 6. But I tell you what, they'll all have a great laugh, right? And I do the entertain for them as well. But what I'm saying is that I've been working. So when I come back, my wife will say, all right, darling, what do you want to tea? I'm saying, I'll grab some tea on the way down. I'm going on the Warwickshire Avon tonight because I'm going fishing. That's my own fishing. And my wife, she's only standing for like you coming back from work, going fishing. So a lot of the time there's that. And the other time is my wife's the same as me. She loves me to have a good time. My missus ain't one of them sitting there with sod all to do, moaning about, oh, I'm bored. You're going out fishing and I'm bored. And think, well, get off your ass and do something about it, I don't say that to my missus, but that's what I say. That's what I'd say to people. People that say they're bored, I can't be done with it. Boredom is idleitis when you're bored. When you're bored, you're idle. Get off and do something about it. And that's what I do. And my missus will just go, literally, if I phone my missus now, I could put it on loudspeaker and go, hello, darling. Phil Smith's just said to me, there's a stretch where they're opening it up now instead of June the 16th, and there's some £20 bowl, and I reckon if I fish tonight, she'd say, well, have you got any clothes with you, any fishing clothes? And I go, yeah. Well, what are you going to eat? And that's, right, I'll see you tomorrow. And that's what she'd say. She wouldn't go, I'm here on my own, bored. That's why we lasted 53 years. So she is me rock, and she loves my success. And I tell you something now, my missus, plays an average golf game, but I tell you what, Tiger Woods ain't got any better clubs because I back her as well. So we back one another, and that's what you need in a relationship, innit?
Oh, that's brilliant, Dan. So, that's a good insight there because not everybody knows that, and that's good. You've got the perfect relationship. That's perfect. 53 years. That's that speaks for itself.
It's actually, some people say to me, about would you ever pack up fishing? And I'm the same as anybody else. I ain't an island. I'm the same as anybody else. I remember the wife had a lump in her breast about 3 years ago, and it proved that he wasn't cancer, he wasn't anything untoward. And for that period of time, I paid, I think it was £400 for her to have a test straight away. I couldn't lie next to her waiting for 3 months thinking I got cancer. So, you know, I couldn't fish. I just couldn't fish. How could I fish? Thinking the wife might have cancer. You know, so, and you know, when the kids are in trouble or whatever, then, so I'm affected by different things, the same as anybody else. I think people think he's a well-known actor. Oh, he's just come back from America and he's just done the, you know, but I have things like, you know what I mean? So all these things in life, I have the same as everybody else. I only portray on Facebook, or, well, you don't hear my troubles, do you? So you only get the best of me. I have the shit you have as well. You know, but I ain't going to sell you that. It's like today. That's why we kept off the otters, pollution, or what. You don't want to hear about that. You want to hear about fishing.
Well, Des, I tell you what, we're coming basically to the end of the show now, really. And there's one thing I've got written down here. You once said you would like to be remembered as a man who stood by his post, inspired Angus to try something different, and catch some big fish along the way. You remember that's
Yeah.
I just wonder, anything else, you would like to add anything else?
It's still the same.
Still the same.
It's still the same. The one thing that's always annoyed me a little bit, and I wrote in the Angling Times for 30 odd years, there's always the new boy on the block that's the best, that comes along. And, you know, we forget the years before. In this day and age now, people only remember this 5 years, you know, which is unfortunate. It's like saying to a football fan, what did Bobby Charlton do? And it's a bit like that classic, what did the Romans do? You know, in Fawlty Towers, you know, what did the Romans do, you know, besides swimming pool, you know, and you can keep going on. And some of the things that I've done over the years, you know, I'm sort of thinking, you know, I've followed you all your life. Have you ever caught a shark? And you think, oh, they only know the last few years. And you know, the Angling Times say, oh, I tell you what, have you seen these catches of this bloke? He's coming along and he's won the Drennan Cup now 3 times on the trot. And I'll tell you something now, not all of them, but you check it out. The people that win the Drennan Cup, and they're on it for 5 years, the amount that pack up, because they burn themselves out.
Yeah.
It's just a long, enjoyable game, this. And if you're in it for anything else, you know, this intenseness, it can't last forever unless, you're willing to risk marriages. You know, to my mind, if you want to do that, you don't get married. But if you get married and you keep risking that, then you got to take the consequences. And that's what happens with people. They go, he's won the, you know, it won't say on a grave, your fish list. He won't say that. He won't say that. He'll say what type of bloke you was. Was he a nice bloke? He was a nice bloke or whatever. But to me, you know, that's one thing I'd like people to just, before you make an opinion to Dez Taylor, find the facts out, because, you know, I ain't that bad a bloke, really, and I'm pretty confident, comfortable in my skin, and I'd just like to be remembered as a Christian. So I might swear like a trooper, I might be a rough
You've been on good behaviour today,
but I'd just like to be remembered as a decent angler, stood by his post, because I'm always willing to stand by my post. And I ain't willing to swallow some of the shit that's going about, you know, what this and what that, and you think, oh my God, you know, when that's where I'm at. And that's why I'm here today. Thanks for listening.
Dez, I've got to say, I've enjoyed every minute. I think you've been brilliant. It's been superb. Made my job very, very, very easy. On behalf of everybody in here, I want to thank you. A big, massive thanks. So put your hands together for Dez.
Thank you. Thank you.
Brilliant.
Thanks a lot. I don't know if there's any questions anybody wants.